Hello students, today we will take up the first chapter from your supplementary reader textbook, Snapshots. The title of the chapter is The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse. This chapter has been written by William Saroyan. William Saroyan was born on 31st August 1908 and he died on 18th May 1981. He was an Armenian-American novelist, playwright, and also a short story writer. William was awarded the Pulitzer Prize for Drama in 1940, and in the year 1943, he won the Academy Award for Best Story for the film adaptation of his novel, The Human Comedy. Now, before beginning the reading of the chapter, I will give you a brief introduction of the chapter. So, this story, The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse, is about two poor Armenian boys. Armenians are the Indo-European people. So, these two poor boys belonged to a tribe which is known for its honesty. So these two cousins, Murad and Aram, they have an intense longing for horse riding. But because they are so poor, so they won't be able to buy a horse ever. Now, so going against the family reputation of being honest, what Murad does, Murad steals the white horse of John Byro. So throughout the story, Aram and Murad are caught between what they feel is right and what they know is right. So let us read more about the adventure of these two brothers, Aram and Murad. One day, back there in the good old days, when I was 9 and the world was full of every imaginable kind of magnificence, and life was still a delightful and mysterious dream, my cousin Murad, who was considered crazy by everybody who knew him, except me, came to my house at 4 in the morning and woke me up, tapping on the window of my room. Aram, he said. I jumped out of bed and looked out of the window. I couldn't believe what I saw. It wasn't morning yet, but it was summer, and with daybreak, not many minutes around the corner of the world, it was light enough for me to know I wasn't dreaming. So, the story begins like this, that one day, this 9-year-old Aram, he was asleep and he was in a world of his own extremely beautiful imagination. Now, his life was pleasant and kind of a mysterious dream itself. So, he tells about his cousin Murad that he was, the cousin Murad was considered crazy by everyone who knew him except Aram. Okay, so it was just Aram who didn't consider him as crazy. So the cousin Murad showed up on the window of Aram's room at 4 a.m. in the morning, and he called Aram, who jumped out of his bed, and still he could not believe. He was so amazed, he was so much in shock that he could not believe what he saw out of the window. And he says that it wasn't morning yet, but it was the summer season and it was dawn and there was enough light outside to make him believe that he wasn't dreaming. So whatever he was seeing was real. Let's read further. My cousin Murad was sitting on a beautiful white horse. I stuck my head out of the window and rubbed my eyes. Yes, he said in Armenian, it's a horse. You're not dreaming. Make it quick if you want to ride. I knew my cousin Murad enjoyed being alive more than anybody else who had ever fallen into the world by mistake, but this was more than ever I could believe. More than even I could believe. In the first place, my earliest memories had been memories of horses, and my first longings had been longings to ride. This was the wonderful part. Now, what has happened here? So, as Aram looked out of the window, he saw his cousin Murad, that he was sitting on a white, beautiful horse. Now, Aram rubbed his eyes and he was amazed to see Murad with this beautiful white horse. And then Murad reassured him that it was not a dream, and he asked him if he wanted a ride. If he wanted a ride, then he must make it quick. He must come over fastly. Now, then the narrator tells us that Murad, his cousin, was the type of person who enjoyed being alive, who enjoyed living his life to the fullest, more than anybody else who had ever taken birth in this world. But Aram couldn't believe that he was seeing a horse in front of him, which Murad had brought to his place. Now, then the narrator tells us that his earliest memories, Aram's earliest memories, had been of horses, and his earliest desires, wishes, had been to ride one of those horses about whom he imagined. Okay. See, Aram knew this from within, that he and his family is poor, and it would be very difficult for them to afford a horse. But the sight of this beautiful white horse and the opportunity to ride this horse in real did not allow him to believe what he was seeing right in front of him in that morning. Okay. Let's read further. In the second place, we were poor. This was the part that wouldn't permit me to believe what I saw. We were poor. We had no money. Our whole tribe was poverty stricken. Every branch of the Garglanian family was living in the most amazing and comical poverty in the world. Nobody could understand where we ever got money enough to keep us with food in our bellies. Not even the old men of the family. Most important of all, though we were famous for our honesty, we had been famous for our honesty for something like 11 centuries. Even when we had been the wealthiest family in what we liked to think was the world, we were proud first, honest next, and after that we believed in right and wrong. None of us would take advantage of anybody in the world, let alone steal. So this is again an important paragraph. This is about the Garglanian tribe. So now the narrator gives another reason why he is surprised and why he is not able to believe what he saw in the morning. And what he saw was that what he knew was, or what he wants us, the readers, to know was that they were very poor, and owning a horse was almost impossible for them. Now, Aram belonged to the Garglanian family that was strictly and funnily in poverty. Now, why he said so? It's because no one could understand and imagine how they managed to get food for themselves every day. Okay. Then the narrator says that we had been famous for our honesty for something like 11 centuries, even when we had been the wealthiest family in what we liked to think was the world. So here he tells the readers that the narrator, although his tribe was poor, the narrator's tribe, although they were poor, but their tribe was known for this honesty, their honesty for like 11 centuries. And then he mentions, we had been the wealthiest family in what we liked to think was the world. So by this the narrator means that the Garoglanians had at one time they had been a very wealthy family and they were richer than anyone else they knew. Okay. Now they had this image in their mind, the Garoglanians, they had this image in their mind that the world constituted of all the people, all those people who mattered to them. Now, though they knew there was a wider population which lived in the world beyond their limited place where they used to live, okay, so they considered only the people, important people, those who were who actually mattered to them. They considered those people as their world, the limited area where they used to live. Okay, so as per their tribe, the Garoglanian tribe, they considered them wealthy. Hence, he means that what they liked to think was the world rather than what they thought was the world. Further, the narrator says that they were very honest, these people of this tribe. They were very honest, they were proud, and they always believed in right and wrong. So, no one from their family would ever steal anything or would take advantage of anything in this world. Anyone or anything in this world. Okay. Let's read further. Consequently, even though I could see the horse, so magnificent, even though I could smell it, so lovely, even though I could hear it breathing, so exciting, I couldn't believe the horse had anything to do with my cousin Murad, or with me, or with any of the other members of our family, asleep or awake, because I knew my cousin Murad couldn't have bought the horse, and if he couldn't have bought it, he must have stolen it, and I refused to believe he had stolen it. No member of the Garoglanian family could be a thief. I stared first at my cousin and then at the horse. There was a pious stillness and humor in each of them, which on the one hand delighted me, and on the other frightened me. So what has happened here? So Aram was very excited that he was experiencing, he was so excited that he could not understand his feelings. He was experiencing mixed feelings. Though he was seeing a horse that was so pleasant and beautiful, he says that he could smell it and hear it breathing, but still he could not believe that Murad or anyone in the family could afford a horse. Now he was sure that Murad hadn't bought that horse, which meant that Murad would have stolen it, of course. But Aram's conscience, since he believed in the values of his own tribe, so Aram's conscience didn't want it to believe that Murad had stolen the horse, as he thought that no one in his family could be a thief. So what he did, at last he stared at his cousin and then at the horse, and then there was a certain calmness about the presence of, he says a pious stillness and humor in each of them. So there was a certain calmness about the presence of the horse with his cousin Murad. Aram was delighted at the idea of riding a horse, but the thought that the horse must have been stolen frightened him, because he believed in the values of his own tribe. So the thought that this horse might be stolen by Murad, he wasn't able to accept that fact, and this incident only frightened him. Okay. Murad, I said, where did you steal this horse? "Leap out of the window," he said, "if you want to ride." It was true, then. He had stolen the horse. There was no question about it. He had come to invite me to ride or not, as I choose. Well, it seemed to me stealing a horse for a ride was not the same thing as stealing something else, such as money. For all I knew, maybe it wasn't stealing at all. If you were crazy about horses the way my cousin Murad and I were, it wasn't stealing. It wouldn't become stealing until we offered to sell the horse, which of course I knew we would never do. Let me put on some clothes, I said. All right, he said, but hurry. I leaped into my clothes. I jumped down to the yard from the window and leaped up onto the horse behind my cousin Murad. So now what has happened here? Aram asked Murad if he had stolen the horse, to which again Murad replied that if he wants a ride, he must jump out of the window quickly. So he directly didn't agree to it that yes, he had stolen the horse, but he asked him to jump up out of the window and come to him. Now, when he says so Aram was convinced that the horse was stolen by Murad. And Murad had come to ask Aram if he wanted to ride the horse with him or not. Now, Aram tried to convince himself, and there is a lot of humor here. He tries to convince himself that stealing a horse for a ride was not the same as stealing money. Then he says that as both Aram and Murad were so crazy about riding a horse that their act of stealing a horse for a ride, just for a ride, wouldn't be considered as stealing at all. Now, he thought that it would not be called stealing until they decide to sell the horse to someone, which he definitely says that they definitely won't be doing it ever. So finally, Aram wore his clothes and got ready for his horse ride, and he jumped down to his yard from his room's window and sat on the horse behind his cousin Murad. Further, that year we lived at the edge of town on Walnut Avenue. Behind our house was the country, vineyards, orchards, irrigation ditches, and country roads. In less than 3 minutes, we were on Olive Avenue, and then the horse began to trot. The air was new and lovely to breathe. The feel of the horse running was wonderful. My cousin Murad, who was considered one of the craziest members of our family, began to sing. He began to roar. So here in this paragraph, we get to know that Aram with his family lived at the edge of the town on Walnut Avenue. He tells us that there were orchards, vineyards, irrigation ditches. Irrigation ditches are the man-made channels used to deliver water to homes, industry, and for various other uses. And then there were orchards, there was this vineyards, there were irrigation ditches, and then there were country roads behind his house. Now, within 3 minutes, he says that within 3 minutes, when they were riding the horse, they were on Olive Avenue. They reached Olive Avenue, and the horse started to proceed further. Trot means he proceeded further. Now, this is a very important part of the story, as this is the experience of the narrator while he was taking his horse ride. Okay, so this might be asked. So he says that the air felt new and lovely to breathe while he was riding the horse, and Aram felt wonderful sitting on the horse, which was running at a very good pace. Then he says that Murad, who was considered one of the craziest members of the family, he started singing very loudly. He actually it seemed as if he was roaring. Okay, let's move further. Every family has a crazy streak in it somewhere, and my cousin Murad was considered the natural descendant of the crazy streak in our tribe. Before him was our uncle Khosrow, an enormous man with a powerful head of black hair and the largest mustache in the San Joaquin Valley. A man so furious in temper, so irritable, so impatient that he stopped anyone from talking by roaring, "It is no harm, pay no attention to it." Now, the narrator again adds humor here and says that there is one crazy person in every family. Okay, and I also agree to it. So, he says that there is one crazy member in every family, and Murad was the one who was the most craziest in their family. He was the one natural descendant, okay, natural successor, it means, of a crazy race in their tribe. Now, before Murad, he tells us that before Murad, there was this uncle Khosrow who was as crazy as Murad. So he is told to be one huge man with black hair and largest mustache he had in the San Joaquin Valley. This San Joaquin Valley it is one of the long interior valley of California. Okay, so then it is told that Uncle Khosrow had a very furious and energetic temper, and he was very impatient and also irritating. Now, what he does was, he used to make anyone stop talking by roaring, by shouting, and his it was this patent dialogue that he used to speak. "It is no harm, pay no attention to it." So every time he used to repeat this dialogue of his. So this was in his habit, that he used to stop everyone from talking and he would say that this dialogue, "It is no harm, pay no attention to it." Okay. Further, that was all. No matter what anybody happened to be talking about, once it was his own son Arak running 8 blocks to the barber's shop where his father was having his mustache trimmed, to tell him their house was on fire. This man Khosrow sat up in the chair and roared, "It is no harm, pay no attention to it." The barber said, "But the boy says your house is on fire." So Khosrow roared, "Enough! It is no harm, I say." My cousin Murad was considered. Okay, we'll take up this paragraph later. First, let us come to this paragraph. So here what has happened, Uncle Khosrow was always this rigid, no matter who happened to be talking about in front of him. Okay, he was so rigid all the time. Now, once his own son Araf came running to him when he was getting his mustache trimmed up at a barber's shop, and Araf told him that their house was on fire, to which again this person Khosrow roared, he shouted and said that the same dialogue, "It is no harm, pay no attention to it." Now, imagine his own house is on fire and he says this to his own son, that just leave it, ignore, pay no attention to it, there is no harm. Now, the barber was amused and in shock, and he tried to convey the same message that the son of Khosrow gave about Khosrow's own house being on fire, but as usual, Khosrow roared again the same dialogue and did not pay attention to it. Okay, he actually didn't pay attention to it. Let's move ahead. My cousin Murad was considered the natural descendant of this man, although Murad's father was Zorab. So here we come to know about Murad's father's name, which is Zorab, who was practical and nothing else. So he was a very practical person. That's how it was in our tribe. A man could be the father of his son's flesh, but that did not mean that he was also the father of his spirit. The distribution of the various kinds of spirit of our tribe had been from beginning capricious and vagrant. So the narrator again creates humor over here and says that Murad was considered to be a natural descendant of this man Khosrow, but Murad wasn't his son, though he was considered to be the natural descendant because he had similar qualities with this uncle Khosrow as his uncle Khosrow, but then he was not his son. Who was his father? Zurab, who was a very practical person. Then it is said a man could be the father of his son's flesh, but that did not mean that he was also the father of his spirit, which means that a child could look like his father. The outer appearance could be that of his father, but doesn't mean that he would inherit his father's nature and attitude and calmness and every other character. Okay. Then the narrator tells us that there are different kinds of people in their tribes. He says that there are capricious people, which means people who have inconsistent change of mood, in a way some moody sort of people. And then there were vagrant people. Vagrant means a person who is without a settled regular work or a permanent house, a settled home, we can say. Basically these people are wanderers, they move from one place to another. Okay, so let us stop here. We will take up the remaining portion in the next session. Till then, reread the portion which we have read today, which we have covered today, and note down your doubts if any. Thank you everyone.